Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that I will no longer participate in family vacations if his ex is present? Here's the background. While studying abroad, my husband Robert got his foreign girlfriend Elizabeth pregnant. Their relationship was rocky and they've been broken up since their son Tim was about 1. I met Robert when Tim was 3 years old. Robert and I have now been together for 13 years. When I met Robert, he was upfront that Tim always comes first, and unfortunately is a package deal with Elizabeth until Tim is old enough for solo international travel. This was unfortunate because at that time, Robert and Elizabeth hated each other. My parents-in-law have always paid for plane tickets for Elizabeth and Tim to visit. Elizabeth and Tim usually visit for 2 to 3 weeks every year. Robert always requested my presence for these visits to build a relationship with Tim and at least the first few years for moral support dealing with Elizabeth. Elizabeth has mostly been nice to me, although it's very superficial. We are not friends. She's fine with the in-laws because they're very nice people who just want a relationship with their grandson and would never jeopardize that access. Robert and Elizabeth's relationship gradually improved, and by the time Tim was 7, they were on friendly terms. Being required to spend 2 to 3 weeks every year staying in the same house as my husband's ex has always been at minimum uncomfortable for me, at times extremely difficult and painful. But I tolerated it without complaint, without fully expressing how hard it was, because I felt that my main job here is to support Robert. I've been holding out for the goalpost Robert identified early on, that when Tim is old enough to travel alone, presumably Elizabeth will no longer come with. Well, that time has arrived. Tim is now 16, traveled alone to visit last summer and it was awesome. However, Elizabeth said she wants to come visit again this year and continue doing so every other year, no end date stated. My parents-in-law will never stop paying for plane tickets and never suggest Elizabeth to not come. In fact, 2 years ago prior to Tim's first solo trip, they assured Elizabeth that she is always welcome even after Tim is an adult, that she is family too. Statements and events like that have amounted to death by 1,000 cuts in which I've been experiencing serious depression surrounding Elizabeth's visits. I feel like that goalpost I was holding out for has vanished entirely. So I told Robert that I will no longer be present for the full family vacations when Elizabeth comes. I will hang out for 1 or 2 weekends only. He knows I'm fully on board with vacations that do not include Elizabeth though. He is hurt, says my lack of presence shows everyone including Tim that I don't care. I told him that a stepmother cannot form a relationship with a stepchild when the mother is present anyway, and these visits are causing me extreme emotional distress, so it's time I take care of myself, because no one else is considering my emotions here. So am I the a-hole for doing this?
Here are the top comments, plus Opie's reply.
Where is she staying when she comes? With your in-laws? I just want to make sure I understand correctly. Instead of having your stepson come to visit and stay with you and your husband in your home, your in-laws hijack the trip by paying, which then forces you and husband to go stay at his parents' house for 2 to 3 weeks in order to see his kid. Does your husband have any legal custody and does he pay child support? I feel like the child should be coming to visit and stay with you in your home at this point, but husband should be paying and arranging. Why are the grandparents doing this? This is a messed up custody situation and it sounds like it is due to your husband relinquishing his parental control to his parents. Sounds like he is the a-hole.
OP replied.
It's combined where they stay. The in-laws have a big house, so they host for a couple weeks, which Elizabeth prefers because that area feels more like home to her as she spent a summer there. Then Elizabeth and Tim come stay at our home for a week. The grandparents pay for the trip because they can afford it, are generous people. And if they didn't buy the plane tickets, Elizabeth could never afford to visit and thus Tim. Thus they would have no relationship with their grandson. My husband would not be able to afford paying for both Elizabeth and Tim to visit. At this point, however, we could buy Tim's ticket, which I would be fine with. There's no possibility for legal custody given the 2 different countries. My husband has sent her money every month since Tim was born though.
Not the a-hole. Sounds exhausting watching your husband play family with the ex. I'm sure you get treated like an aunt or something, but it would not be enough for me. I'm amazed you did it so long, honestly. What's the point of having a relationship if he only comes once a year with his mothers anyways?
OP replied.
Thanks. That is exactly how I feel. Why put myself through this pain when I'm not even establishing a relationship with Tim? Due to the situation, all the other family members desperate for as much interaction with him as they can. I keep thinking that when we can finally take him for a longer trip, just the 2 of us, Then I can work on our relationship. It was supposed to happen this year. Then Elizabeth decided she wanted to come visit.